Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Podcast on Fifth Ave. I think we're all getting really excited because we're officially less than a week away from the start of the regular season, with the Penguins gearing up to go to Tampa to take on the defending champion Lightning. That's going to be a good game, but there are still some things that they need to figure out, before we get to that point. And with the absence of Sidney Crosby and Evgeni Malkin, the third and fourth line center, still those positions are still up for grabs. So Taylor, after watching these first handful of preseason games, all of these fringe players, guys from Wilkes-Barre, and even just guys on the team kind of rotating around in different positions, who are your two picks to fill those slots down the center line?
Yeah, so I think my first pick would be Evan Rodriguez, and I feel like that's what they're leaning towards too on the second line with Zucker and Kapanen. He's been there the most often, and of the guys that are, of the options they have, he does have the most experience playing at this level, playing at center, other than Boyle, who didn't play last year. But he would be my pick to fill that second line center role, because I think Blueger is going to stay on the third line with Aston, Reese, McGinn, whoever's going to be there. So he would be my pick. So he would also be my pick to stay until Malkin comes back, because Malkin, going to be out until December. Crosby's probably only going to be out of 4 games, it looked like, based on the original timeline they gave us. So I think I would rather give that opportunity to someone like Drew O'Connor, a young guy who I think it would be a good experience for him. And again, it's probably only a couple of games. He can move to wing or go down to Wilkes-Barre if he doesn't fit after those couple of games. But he's someone, he played about half his games at center in Wilkes-Barre. He's played 2 games at center in the preseason, and I thought he looked good. The first game was in Buffalo, and he went 10-4 in faceoffs. He lost more than he won in the last game at home against Buffalo at center, but I thought he's looked good, and he's a young guy. I'd like to see him get that shot over maybe someone like Boyle, who I don't know if Boyle would be a long-term option to stick around for the rest of the season. Anyway, after watching his skating, especially. So O'Connor and Rodriguez would be my picks.
Solid options. Jenna, who would your 2 guys be?
I was gonna say, it's a good thing that we are all friends, because I think I'm exactly on the same page. And like you hit it perfectly. But I think Evan Rodriguez is kind of that role player guy. We mentioned it a little bit, but this is kind of the same type of player he was in Buffalo, where you could plug him on a line with whoever and he would still find success. He's still a guy that can set his teammates up really well. He also can score. He has scoring ability. He can generate goals. Obviously, he's not going to be a guy that goes out there and scores, 20, 30 goals by any means, but he can kind of be good for some of those goals when you don't think that he's going to get you one. He has a knack for doing that. He has such a knack for scoring goals that you're just like, especially against Buffalo too. I've always noticed that. Like, I always joke, he's good for like 1 a game against the Sabres, and I'll tweet like, Evan Rodriguez revenge game yet again, because he always does that. But he kind of is, I don't want to say a veteran presence, but he's a guy that they're very high on, that has experience in the league, that can play well with a lot of people. And again, if he's on a line with Zucker and Kapanen, I think those 3 will bode really well. You'll get good things from him. It's not going to be anything spectacular by any means. Of course, it's not going to be an Evgeni Malkin level, but he's going to be a steady presence out there that, you can trust when he's out there, he is going to make plays. And then, my goodness, Drew O'Connor's speed, I think, is all I've heard everybody talk about. Like, that took over my Twitter timeline, not only from all of you guys, all the Penguins beat reporters, but a lot of the Sabres people as well the last couple games here, where they saying, man, Drew O'Connor looks good. He's showing a lot of flash. And who knows? Maybe just coming in last year the way he came in and, playing a couple games, not being a bad presence by any means, but just needing that NHL experience, because again, he had a solid college career, but there's always that next jump. And I think this offseason we saw him again. I feel he was the one that cut out dairy and gluten.
dairy and gluten, and he did really work on his strength and his speed, which I mean we're seeing. And I talked to people. He trained with like Chris Kreider and Hayden on the Rangers, and then Hayden on the Devils. Which like I mean Kreider not a bad guy to be working out with.
Yeah.
No. Also, my God, cutting dairy and gluten out of my diet would just make me sad.
I know.
Yeah, miserable.
So Drew O'Connor, I give you a lot of credit for doing that. But I mean, obviously, clearly that's been a thing that's paid off for him. He's finding that next level to his game, which I think the Penguins understand that they need. And for him, he probably sees this as an incredible opportunity to say, hey, you know, we are missing two of our top guys. I want to do all I can in the preseason and in training camp to prove I should be on this roster for the time being, and I'm going to do all I can to get a spot here to stay here for as long as I can.
Yeah. He does. I would like to see him be better defensively. He did kind of have a rough first period in that last game at home against Buffalo, but I mean, he talks about that he needs to be, you know, reliable defensively to be a center at this level. So again, it's only going to be probably 4 games until Crosby comes back, but I'd be willing to take that risk to put him out there at center.
Yeah, it's definitely not a bad option. Again, with what he's kind of shown up to this point in the preseason, you know, you're not going to fill those roles, but for him to kind of be there and, you know, say, hey, look at what I can do. You've seen my body of work up to this point, and it's been decently impressive for what was expected of him.
Yeah. Jordan, what would your picks be?
So I'm obviously going to stick with the Drew O'Connor portion of it. I feel like he has more than earned his place in the lineup with the preseason and the camp that he's had. He's just so quick, and his awareness and his puck handling and his passing, like with the exception of a few moments, have just been really amazing. Like just something to watch, and he's just all over the ice all the time. And I think that he's the kind of two-way player that the bottom 6 really needs right now, with, you know, all of the injuries on the higher end players. Like I just feel like he would add some energy and some spark that maybe, you know, have gone off to Seattle far away. But maybe I'm just blinded by my own personal irrational, unexplainable love for him, but I really want to see what would happen if they put Radim Zohorna at the center position. He made some very errant decision, like passes last night, and he made some glaring mistakes, but he just has this like wildfire, like spark in him, like energy that is, and DK even said it last night on Twitter, and we were kind of going back and forth about it. There's something about it that's reminiscent of early years Gino, like the way that he just kind of like hops out there on the ice, and he's another fast dude. Like for his size, he just glides around on the ice like a gazelle. And I think that he seems like the kind of guy that can make mistakes and then immediately correct them. And I think that I would love to see, like, I was really impressed last night with the way that Zucker, Zohorna, and Kapanen all kind of played together and fed off of each other. There were moments that I was like, whoa, this line is buzzing, and I want more of this. Please don't take this away just yet. So, and if that doesn't work out, then yeah, you have a guy like Evan Rodriguez who is more familiar with the team, with playing at the professional level. But I personally, like, I feel like Erod plays better when his minutes are more limited. Like when he was up on the top line, he just kind of existed. He didn't really do a whole lot. And there was a lot of pressure on him to perform at a top line level because he was on the top line with Sidney Crosby. So I think that he seems to thrive in a more minimal role. So potentially keeping him on the wing and sliding him down to third or fourth line. I would prefer to see that, but you never know. Like, it's a new season. A lot has changed. A lot of guys need to step up, and I feel like Zahorna would be a risk, but it's one that I just am all here for. I would love to see it.
Yeah, and he did speak Tuesday about needing to make better decisions, and he spoke about not being happy with some of the passes he made. I think I would just like to see him with his size be more physical and finish more of his shots. I mean, we saw that Tuesday where there were a couple of moments where he went into the corners with someone, and maybe it's like that should have been a hit, and then it wasn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, I think he would be my next pick. I'm still not crazy about Boyle. His skating mostly. I think he's not going to make some of those bad decisions that we have seen Zahorna make and Connor make in the first period Tuesday. So that might earn him a spot over some of these younger guys. But I don't know. I think he would be in consideration, and that's really all it's down to. I mean, Dominic Simone, people talk about him. He hasn't played center at all this preseason, and I think I asked him about his comfort level at center in training camp, and he was pretty clear that he really didn't like it. Sam Poulin really hasn't had that great of a camp, and Phil Hollander didn't have a great debut. Again, he was hurt to start camp, but he also hasn't played center in about 3 years. So I think really you're down to those 4 guys that are in consideration: Rodriguez, O'Connor, Zahorna, and Boyle.
Yeah.
Going to be interesting to see how it plays out with the game tomorrow in Detroit, and then the game on Saturday in Columbus, right? They're playing the Blue Jackets. Yeah, so we'll hopefully start to really see the full picture come together, because like I said at the beginning, less than a week away. So these are decisions that are going to need to be made. And just because they make it now doesn't mean they have to stick with it until Gino's back. But you would think that they're going to probably try to go with a long-term solution up front. So I'm on the edge of my seat, and I'm really looking forward to seeing who they pick. And they have some solid options. But let's take a break really quick and come back and start to talk a little bit more in depth about the other standouts of the preseason. And we are back. So the third and fourth line center discussion is not the only thing there is to talk about, because there were plenty of other guys that really impressed this preseason, and it's not even over yet. So from the first handful of preseason games, Jenna, who has kind of caught your eye the most and maybe surprised you the most?
I think we touched on it a little bit, but I think Drew O'Connor for me. And again, with guys like that, it's, coming in, what expectations are they being held to? I think obviously with the difficulty in selection and the amount of centers the team has right now, options for that, there was a little more of attention towards the guys who could play center. But like we were saying in the last segment there, just, I mean, his speed, just the way that, he was playing the game, what we heard from Mike Sullivan talk about him and, how high he was on him. And of course, I think part of it too is, I always laugh because he's a Dartmouth College guy and everyone automatically is like, oh, Dartmouth College, Sullivan, 2-2 type thing. Loving the Boston, New England area colleges. And the Ivy League among that too. Dartmouth is an Ivy League, right? Am I crazy?
Yeah, so sounds like it.
I don't want to throw that out to the world and then be like, no, that's not it. But I mean, from what I saw, and there's a couple other answers too. I mean, obviously, Kasperi Kapanen is playing fantastic, as we've seen in the last thing. I know there was a little bit of intrigue because how in shape was he coming into camp? How in shape are these guys when they come in type thing? He'd spent the summer having some fun, look like, based on his Instagram, which honestly I respect and love that. Him and the whole romance, like, my goodness, incredible. Yeah. I mean, he kind of just, I think his game is going to continue to grow. I think also we're going to see him build so much confidence. He's a guy that already has a whole lot, but the way he talked in one of the interviews, I think it was probably the first time we talked to him in camp, where he kind of said, it really helped last season, having one of his best seasons. I think he knows how well he played and how much he can build on that too. I think that's something that he clearly wants to continue, and just the way he has performed in these preseason games, like we talked about the first game, the first period, I felt like you just noticed him all over the ice. And then obviously his goal in the most recent game, which Taylor, I know you love as a fan, Jordan, you love that. If you're in the press box and you're covering the game, that's the worst thing that can happen ever. I laughed so hard when I was on Twitter yesterday, just scrolling. I'm like, oh my God, everyone in that press box is probably like, son of a.
Well, yeah, the time it takes to get down to the press box. So we normally leave at maybe like a stoppage kind of late in the third, go down to the media room where there are TVs. So we don't get to watch it, but it's not from the press box. But yeah, it's like 52 seconds left, and Kapanen scores, and we're all down there in the media room like, is he for real? And like, like one of the other writers, because I mean that game, Mark Friedman got hit real bad in the first period. He dropped the block a shot. Honestly, I don't think anyone really saw where it hit him. If you looked at the tweets from all of us, it's like we all picked a different body part. I said face, someone said knee, someone said foot.
I said head, yeah.
Yeah, well, because he dropped and he was like a ball, like trying to block the shot. And like at the replays, I think maybe it hit him in the knee and bounced into his face. But that happened. Mike Sullivan got hit. One of the other reporters
was like, a weird game.
With the way the puck is going, Kapanen, why did you do that? Just get out of there. It's a preseason.
Just back out of the way.
It went to the 9 rounds of a shootout, and we're all just like, end this. And then like Zucker finally scored, and we're like, thank goodness. Like the preseason game, there's like someone's gonna get hurt. Just get out of there. But anyway, my pick for my favorite standout. I feel like maybe this is cliche for me to pick a Wilkes-Barre guy, but Jordy Bellerive. I've said a number of times, I think even on this podcast, that of the forwards in the system already, no one reminds me more of Tanev than him. And he's played 2 games. He did play at center, and I thought he fared well at center. Faceoffs weren't great in one of those games, but I asked Sullivan between those 2 games, like just what are your impressions of Bellerive, and he kind of like lit up. Like you could tell how much he liked Bellerive's game. He said he plays with a lot of moxie. He's an energy guy. He has a physical dimension to his game. He's real competitive. I thought he played hard. He's a real competitor. And then the game in Buffalo, he drops the gloves and gets in a fight. The next day after I saw him about that, and it was not a close fight. I don't know who the poor guy he fought on Buffalo is. I saw he's in Rochester now, but
it was Mikhail Picard, who, by the way, is like, when I covered him in Buffalo, he is known for being like a pest. He loves it too. He always is like, I like to be out there, I like to get under a guy's skin. And he usually wins a decent amount of fights. So for Bellerive to just pummel him like that.
Yeah, he's bigger than Bellerive. Bellerive, I think, is only maybe 5'10", 5'11". He's very stocky, but Picard's bigger. And I saw people like when he got in that fight, like trying to like downplay it, like, oh, he's a European, like soft, but like no, like he fights. Like I looked up his like fight history and like I put it in my story. Like he didn't just pick some scrub, but I remember some people were saying on the Sabres broadcast, like no real winners in that one. It's pretty close, and it's like, are we watching the same fight?
Yeah, that was wild.
It was not a close fight.
It was not close, but that's Bellerive. He would do that in Wilkes-Barre. And the thing with Bellerive is he's just so clutch. To this point in his career, 12 of his 22 career goals have been in the third period or overtime, which is just crazy. Like his nickname in Wilkes-Barre is Big Goal Belly. Like they'd call him that on the broadcast, like JD Forrest, the head coach, would call him that too. I don't know. I asked him during camp, like, why do you think you've been able to come up, clutch so many? Like he had 2 overtime goals last season. And he said, he's like, oh, I just love scoring the big goals. He didn't really have a great answer, but yeah, I mean, he's been great. I did ask Wilkes-Barre assistant coach Kevin Porter, who does coach the forwards and the PK, which I mean, Bellerive, big part of the PK too, what he thinks Bellerive needs to do to get up to this level. And he said the biggest thing for him is just to improve his faceoffs. Couldn't give you his Wilkes-Barre faceoff numbers because the AHL does not track face-offs hits. Literally anything useful. They don't time on ice. They don't have time on ice, at least publicly. So I couldn't tell you how he fared in face-offs and give you an exact number. But they said that's the biggest thing with him. And he is entering the last year of his entry-level contract. I would love to see him get a shot up here. He's the type of player Sullivan really likes. And another player who kind of plays a very Sullivan-like game is Kasper Bjorkquist, and I thought he had a quiet good game Tuesday. No points, but I mean, physical, chippy. He drives to the net. When he was here, so he played in Finland last year because they started earlier. The season before that, they would show him videos of Patrick Hornquist doing drills and like in games, and as an example of like we see you as this type of player. We want you to be like this and do the things he does. And that it really is a great comparison, especially for his net front abilities. They do have a similar name too, but Kasper is Finnish. But those would be my two quiet standouts of the guys who, again, Kasper's on the NHL roster, Belarus's down in Wilkes-Barre, but both of them I think could see NHL time this year.
Yeah.
Who would be your pick, Jordan?
Well, yeah, Jordy Bellerive has looked really, really good. I thought that in the games where he's played, Nathan Legare has looked solid. Honestly, for me, the guy who really swept me off my feet was Michael Chaput. Like, I'm a sucker for net front presence. So that goal that he got in the game in Buffalo, where he was just like hovering around the crease and then was just waiting. He was waiting for the puck, and he was right where he needed to be, flipped it around, shot it into the net. Beautiful. And I love it so much seeing that, because I feel like for the past several years, the Penguins have been lacking that. They just they'll pass around the perimeter, they'll shoot from the perimeter. They're not really creating much traffic in front in the lane. So the goalie sees everything that's going on all the time. And it feels like that's the reason why they've had such terrible puck luck, and they're outplaying their opponents and out controlling their opponents. But they just aren't really getting into those gritty zones. So to see a guy just come up and put himself right in there, I was very impressed by that. And I thought his overall play was really solid too. So I enjoyed watching him. And then, Kasperi Kapanen and Jeff Carter have both, it's preseason, and obviously they're not playing who they're going to be playing in the regular season, but they've looked spectacular. They have looked so good. Like, they're ready to step up and be those top six guys that they're really going to have to rely on, with the, captain and another top 50 player in the league being out. So I think that there's a lot of promise for a lot of these guys. And P.O. Joseph has looked pretty solid too. I think that he's had a very consistent camp and preseason. Like, he's done well. He looks more comfortable playing on this level now. And I would honestly personally love to keep seeing him play and grow, because I think that once he really starts clicking, he's going to be off the charts. But that's just, I listed 7 guys, but the first few, Jordy Bellerive, Legare, and then Chaput, those are my 3, oh yeah, you guys.
Legare, his speed, I mean, we've talked about it on here before, just really stands out. He got a whole lot faster over the last year. He dropped 15 pounds, which is crazy to me, just in the last year.
That is wild.
Yeah, he said just mostly changing his diet. But of the big 3 forward prospects that everyone is excited about, Legare, Poulin, Hollander, Legare far and above number one out of that group. Poulin, again, I don't think his skating is quite up to NHL speed. He really just hasn't had that great of a camp, I thought. And Hollander, we just talked about how he didn't have the greatest start. He was hurt, and when he came back in, he did have a rough start in that game. Again, I think all 3 of them start in Wilkes-Barre regardless, but from what we've seen, Legare maybe closest to being NHL ready. Legre, if we're talking standouts, I talked about Jason Zucker's suit on here in the press box. It's like a muted teal, kind of magenta plaid print. And I was like, that's my favorite suit I've seen of all the scratches in the press box so far. Nathan Legre on Tuesday took the title for best press box suit. It's like gray, blue and white, like plaid, very bold. If people want to see it, if you look on his Instagram, he just put it up.
Amazing.
He was in the elevator and we're all like, dude, like great suit. That's NHL level, but it was his prom suit in 2018. I forget his Instagram, but he's looked good in camp for sure, at least out of those three. So I think he sees NHL time too this year. Yeah,
we got a lot to look forward to. That suit, I just can't get over it. Oh my god, it's so
Incredible.
slick.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned Joseph too, real quick. I just don't see what his path is right now because he has only ever played on the left side. He did confirm that even juniors, minors, he never pushed it up to the right side. And obviously on the left side they have Dumoulin, Matheson, Pettersson above him in the depth chart. In Tuesday's game, they did dress for lefties, Ricola and Joseph, along with Pettersson and Dumoulin. So at the morning skate, you figured, either Joseph or Ricola would play on the right side. Joseph, again, never has. Ricola actually has a fair amount. I saw Bob Grove tweeted that of his career starts, 49% of his starts have come on the right side, so his offside. And they rotated the defense in that skate, so we didn't get an idea of what they'd use. And I asked Sullivan, like, with 4 lefties, would you use this as an opportunity to try both Ricola and Joseph on the right side, like switch them just to give Joseph that experience? And he said they're going to start Ricola, but possibly, but we never did see Joseph play on the right side. And Ricola actually did fare pretty well on the right side. So, I mean, on the right side, that opening left by Cody Cisse is really down to Friedman, Ruhwedel, or Ricola, with Friedman and Ruhwedel being natural righties. But the fact that Joseph, we didn't see him on the right side, tells me that that's not where he's going to get a shot to be an NHL regular.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, why don't we take another break and then we will come back for a little bit more dissection of what we're anticipating and predicting for this season. We are back again. So looking ahead to this 2021-2022 regular season, Taylor, what are some of your big picture predictions for the Penguins this year?
I'm going to say they don't make the playoffs. Just looking at how competitive the division is, and how other teams did get better, and other teams that are going to be like the Rangers and the Devils, who weren't playoff teams last year, and just seeing the strides they took over the offseason and younger players making strides in their development. I think it's going to be a really tough division, and I'm going to say that this is the year that the playoff streak ends. Then again, I think I also said that last year, and they ended up winning the division. So you never know. I guess you can't count them out ever because no one predicted them to win the division last year. I think a lot of people also did predict they would miss the playoffs last year, but I don't know, especially with Malkin being out as long as he is, it's gonna be a tough year. We know Crosby always elevates his game. They elevate their game whenever the other one's out. So I think we're gonna see Crosby step up his game when he does come back. But I don't know. Even then, I don't see this being a playoff team, or at least not a contender for the Cup.
That's fair. Jenna, what do you have anything that's a little brighter, or are you kind of on the same page? I mean, I'm not saying you're wrong. It's just now I'm really sad because I'm realizing, much like the Steelers' sack streak ended a couple weeks ago, there's a very good chance that the playoff streak could end this year. Jenna, what are your thoughts?
I mean, the division is so intriguing to me. This might be honestly the most exciting division to watch in hockey this year, just because you're bringing Carolina back in, who they're always under the radar. One of my favorite teams to kind of keep an eye on, just because I think they're such a fun team to watch. Obviously, we know what the Islanders are. We know, the Rangers are good. The Caps are still going to be the Caps. So this is going to be a really intriguing, every game matters, obviously, but every game in the division is going to feel like it matters so much more, just because of the fact that it could be so competitive. And you don't, like Taylor was saying, you can't count the Rangers and the Devils out consistently. You can't do that. I mean, the Rangers still have some questions that need to be answered. I think they're a better team than the Devils as of right now. But in terms of Penguins Central predictions, I can go a little more. I'll bring some optimism. I think we're going to see really good seasons from both Jake Gensel and Kasperi Kapanen. And I think those are two guys that a lot of people obviously have stock in, and rightfully so. But I think this could be a 30, 35, even maybe 40 goal season for Gensel. I think you're going to see a lot of really good production from Kapanen. I mean, I think he's going to build on his game. Also, I mean, we have to remember they're going back to the full 82 game schedule. They haven't played like this in 2 full seasons, if I'm doing that right in my head, because obviously the COVID
you are.
That. Who knows what day it is anymore, let alone what year we're in.
It really doesn't matter.
But they're getting back into a routine that they're so accustomed to, but it's going to be, really, they haven't played this full grind of a schedule. Also, it's going to kind of come down to how healthy can you stay? So in hindsight, maybe it's almost a good thing. I feel like we heard, I want to say Hextall was the one that said this, but you're starting the season off without 2 of your best guys. You're getting Crosby and Malkin back throughout the season. You're just going to get better. So if they can start off strong against, also with the Tampa game, it's going to be kind of a good, hey, where is this team at? This is the level that they're at right now, kind of a good barometer of where they could go. And knowing that, hey, you're going to get 2 of the best players in the league back on your team, and it's just going to make you stronger. If you can hang on for a little bit without the absence of Crosby, I think they're still going to be a good team. Obviously, you can't count them out, but yeah, I mean, it could be the year that the playoff streak ends. I know a lot of Pittsburgh fans hope that doesn't happen, but and with where the division's at right now, it could happen.
Not to keep pumping every other division team's tires, but I mean, even the Flyers, the Flyers really weren't that far out of it last year, and their biggest holes were goaltending and the defense. Even if you account for the poor defense in front of Carter Hart, there's a advanced stat, goals saved above expected, which does take into account the quality and quantity of shots faced, and how a goaltender performs given that. And Carter Hart still did underperform. But I mean, Carter Hart is a rookie, very strong. They did resign Carter Hart, so they do have confidence that he can rebound. And if he can rebound, and they did really upgrade their defense with a couple of pieces. So I think, there really aren't a whole lot of bad teams in this division now. It's going to be really tough. Also, Keith Yandel on the Flyers, he's one of my favorite players. I don't know if you guys saw that video of it. They need to have him mic'd up every game.
Yes.
The one that went viral this week was I guess anytime a goaltender settles the puck behind the net and leaves it for him, he skates by and he says thank you. The thing,
my gosh.
I never knew he did that. I just thought that was so funny to hear that mic'd up, just so polite. But the other thing I love hearing Keith Yandel do, he calls it sonking, which when he's waiting behind the net, try to start a breakout, he'll fake a pass to someone, but not actually pass the puck. If there's an opponent waiting for him and fool the opponent moves, and then when he does that and the opponent falls for it, he yells "sunk." I remember when he was in Pittsburgh last, and he was with the Panthers. He did that to Thomas Toffoli, and Thomas Toffoli's one of his first games. So I don't know. Looking forward to seeing Keith Yandel in Pittsburgh more, just because he's so fun. But I don't know. Not great for the Penguins though. Care about that.
It's definitely not. I feel like I may be a little bit more on the unwarranted optimistic side of things. I don't see the Penguins as a Stanley Cup contender. I think there are way too many question marks there and not enough cap space to address the issues that they're going to face throughout the course of the season. Unfortunately, what I kind of see happening is them sort of heating up as the season goes along. I feel like Sidney Crosby just has like superhuman willpower that spills out onto people around him.
Yep.
And we've watched him single-handedly literally like will the team into the playoffs. Like they're struggling and then all of a sudden it's like, what? First round. Okay. I feel like it's going to be very similar to the last 2 years. I think they're going to squeak into the playoffs. I don't think they're going to win the division this year. I think that because teams like Jersey and the Rangers and the Flyers, like they're trending up and the Penguins are trending down. But I think that in that crisscross or the kind of like intersection, we're still slightly above them in our downward slope than they are up, if that even makes sense. I think that the Rangers specifically probably have one more year to play through before they actually see the postseason. And Jersey is getting better, but the Devils still when they struggle hard. So yeah. I think that, and the Flyers can be super streaky. Their biggest issue has been consistency. And I think that it's likely that the Penguins can keep it together long enough to get them a postseason spot. But I think that they're going to just disappoint in the first round again, which is painful to think about. But they've really given no reason to believe otherwise, that they're actually going to like have things fall into place this year and suddenly breeze past and go to the second round, conference finals, Stanley Cup. Like I don't see that happening again anytime soon, which is sad. But I do think that Jenna, you mentioned it. I think Kasperi Kapanen's going to have a career season. He has looked so good in the preseason. He looked really solid last year. I think that he's just going to get better and better. And I'm looking forward to that. I'm more so going to be reveling in individual players' accomplishments this year, because I think that we're going to see some really cool stuff. And I think there will be fun storylines to follow. It's just not going to be as a team, unfortunately.
I think Wilkes-Barre is going to be more exciting to follow than they have in recent years. I mean, they haven't made the playoffs. Well, the AHL didn't have playoffs the last 2 years. They missed the playoffs in 2019. So they haven't made the playoffs since 2018. But, I mean, some of the young guys that are going to be down there, I mean, Poulet and Lager, Hollander, I'm pretty sure going to start down there. Puustinen, I think he's going to be great to follow this season. And the guys like Bellery, Bjorkquist, taking steps. I think Wilkes-Barre is going to have a good year, and it's going to be a lot of fun to follow Wilkes-Barre. Hold on, here's a fun question though. So, who's the All-Star game? Who's going to be the Penguins representative? Because now the way they're doing it is the All-Star game is immediately followed by the NHL break. So Crosby, Malkin, probably Gensel, Kapanen, not candidates, because they're going to be in China, or Teddy Blueger, because Teddy Blueger's going to be picked. Teddy Blueger is going to be an Olympian.
Yep.
So like we might see like Brian Rust, because I don't think Brian Rust is going to make Team USA, but like Brian Rust, I think could be an All-Star this year, which would be really cool to see from him.
It'd be awesome.
No, I think you're right. I think if he doesn't make Team Canada or Team USA, excuse me, wow. Also, like, can we just Olympic for a minute? If Canada, like, I hate saying this because obviously USA all the way, but if Canada doesn't win the Olympics, that roster, I don't have,
Unbelievable.
because again, we haven't had NHL players in the Olympics since 2016,
Yeah.
2016,
2018.
What
year are we in?
Yeah. Wow,
2018,
math.
no,
We can do it.
2018, whatever. Okay.
No, because
Yeah.
so it would have been 2014 because it was Sochi. It was.
Oh, that's
Correct.
right. That's right.
Yep.
Correct.
Oh, my
2018, they didn't have any. So
They
yeah,
didn't have them. Yeah.
Yep.
So we
Oof.
haven't had this, and then you look at Team Canada. I'm like, this is just unfair. It's like, holy, I don't have words. When you look at that, like the fact that what is it? It's Bergeron, Marchand, and Crosby,
and McDavid, like
and McDavid and McKinnon. It's like she's like, oh,
Cale Makar too, right?
Yep, Makar.
Yep.
And
oh my God,
this is going to be one of the best rosters Team USA has had in a while too, but I don't think, I don't know, don't let Mike Sullivan know I said this, but I don't think we're going to see Team USA win gold. Well, especially because they're probably not even going to have Jack Eichel. So blame the Sabres for that. Can the Sabres be classified as an enemy of the state because Jack Eichel can't go to the Olympics? Maybe. That's something to consider.
That's a great question that definitely needs answers.
It's an offense.
But yeah, the Olympics I think are going to be really, really fun to follow, and especially because Teddy Blueger's going to be there. I think that's really cool for him because he was a big part of Latvia qualifying. Like they didn't earn their spot based off the IIHF rankings. They had to qualify in the tournament. So, and he captained Latvia in that tournament. So that doesn't necessarily mean he's going to be captain for, the actual Olympics, but that would just be really cool if he was like the Olympic Team Latvia Olympic captain, like Teddy Blueger. And then Gensel too. I don't think he's necessarily a lock with all the other forwards the Team USA has, but I think he has a good shot of making his first Olympics. So that'd be cool. And then Kapanen too. I think Kapanen is definitely in consideration.
Yeah. For these guys too, I mean, this was something that they pushed for so hard. And obviously we'll deep dive into this later as the season goes, but this was something they were like, we want this. This was their, part of the CBA when they were agreeing to the return to play. It was like, all right, we want to play in the Olympics. This means so much to them.
Yeah.
And they know the risks associated, and they're still like, no, we want to represent our country on the national stage. And my God, it's going to be, wow.
Oh, that's going to be so good.
Well,
it's going to be so good.
And because they are normally in Olympic year, they don't have the All-Star game. We are getting both, even if, when they are going to the Olympics. So I think they're going to have it's like a 3-week total break, which could be good for something like Jeff Carter. They are going to go back to an 82-game season. He is older. So, I mean, 3 weeks off in the middle of the season to, kind of recharge. Guys are always, bruised up a little that time of year. So for someone like Carter, who is older, I mean, this could really help him if they are still in contention for a playoff spot by that time this year.
Yeah. And just to get guys healthy at that point, if there are injuries, knowing, hey, you have a decent amount of time to get guys back. Also, COVID, we've seen what it can do up to this point. So that could be a good thing too, where it's like, all right, they're not around each other consistently for 3 weeks.
Yeah, hopefully the Penguins, they made it through the last 2 seasons without a single in-season, positive case. And now they have 2 with Aston Reese and Gensel. And we're recording this on a Wednesday. The last update we had was that Gensel to this point has been asymptomatic, which means that he could return for the season opener. So like the NHL protocols say that you sit out at least 10 days from the onset of symptoms, but what if you're not symptomatic? It's like last season, I believe, where 2 negative tests can a day apart can clear you. Yeah. So Gensel, they could still have him potentially for the season opener. Aston Reese, though, was symptomatic. He did have mild symptoms, but Sullivan said, I think it was Tuesday, that he's feeling a lot better. So, but given when the symptoms, we believe, started, he still also could be back in time for the opener, which great news for the Penguins because they don't need any more guys going down at this point.
Nope.
Yeah, that's so true. Well, exciting things ahead, regardless of what happens with the Penguins, because, even if they are sucking it up mid-season, we'll have a break for the Olympics. So we'll have plenty to talk about throughout the season, but yeah, we'll be here again for all types of coverage on the Penguins, on the AHL team, on the Olympics, all of it. And we just, hope that you will join us for it. Yeah. Thanks for tuning in again to the podcast on Fifth Avenue. We will see you next week.